What's happening, guys? How's it going? So yeah, I've got a video coming that's going to be about the Ricky Burns Lee Selby fight. I'm going to do a video about that one, but before I do that, I'm going to do a video here, a prediction video for the heavyweight fight that's going to be on the same card. It's the Josh Taylor versus Regis Prograis World Boxing Super Series final. It's taking place in the O2 in London, and the main heavyweight attraction on the card, which I'm sure is going to draw a lot of the fans in London, is going to be this fight between Dereck Chisora and Joseph Parker. Now, this is one of them fights. It's really intriguing to me because it really goes to show you how quickly things can change in boxing and how quickly our perceptions can change. Now, if this fight had been made, like if you'd have asked me about this fight a year ago, say 1 year ago this fight got made, I would have been entirely confident that Joseph Parker would have won the fight and won the fight comfortably on points. That would have been my prediction: a comfortable points win or potentially a late stoppage by Joseph Parker. However, a lot can change in a year, and I've got to say, as this fight's been made now, I'm actually not too sure about it. I'm really not. Now, I still do favour Joseph Parker to win the fight. I think the smart money on this fight for me, what I can see as the most likely outcome is a close decision victory by Joseph Parker. So say a very close unanimous decision. That's how I could see this fight, when I visualize it in my head. But then I think to some of the recent performances of both guys. Now, Joseph Parker's last fight, I believe it was his last fight anyway, he took on Alex Leapai. And I've got to be honest, guys, I was shocked by how that fight went. Now, Alex Leapai, I've been following Alex Leapai for many years. He's a guy I like. He's a very entertaining fighter. Guy with a lot of power, a lot of heart. Really, really brave and determined guy. He's one of these fighters, Alex Leapai, who, although he's very limited, doesn't really have a whole lot of skill, doesn't really have a whole lot of athleticism. He's a guy who, is just so mentally strong. He's a guy who's always hanging in there. You could be beating the crap out of him and then he could turn it around with one punch. He's that type of fighter, Alex Leapai. And I was really surprised by how much problems he gave Joseph Parker, man. I was expecting a stoppage in that fight. I mean, Alex Leapai is way past his prime, badly out of shape. He's been stopped pretty much. Well, he's been convincingly beaten anyway at any high level that he's fought. I mean, the guy got completely dominated and schooled a few years ago by Manwoo Char. He also got completely outboxed and schooled in his backyard by Malik Scott. He was brutally, just brutalized by Vladimir Klitschko. He got dominated in that fight, and that was an old, on-the-slide Vladimir Klitschko. Took him out in 5 rounds. And he was also knocked out, surprisingly too, he was knocked out by Kevin Johnson, who is not not even a, domestic level fighter. I would say Kevin Johnson is a complete journeyman. And yet he was able to knock out Alex Leapai. The one performance I can think of, well, there's a couple, but the one performance that stands out that I would say was his career-defining victory was when he fought Dennis Boitstoff in Germany. He was an undefeated guy at the time, and that was the fight that got him in the position to be mandatory for Klitschko. And yeah, he surprisingly completely beat the crap out of Dennis Boitstoff and won by decision. But other than that, he's what you're getting with somebody like Leapai. So when you take a young guy like Joseph Parker, a guy who's young, a guy who has been a world champion, who has a lot of people believing that he can go ahead and achieve big things in the sport. For him to have so many problems and to look so ordinary and so limited against Alex Leapai, that is surprising to me. In fact, I thought that Malik Scott did a better job against Alex Leapai than Joseph Parker did. And I know Joseph Parker officially got the stoppage, but it was a bullshit stoppage. Let's be real. That fight should not have been stopped. Alex Leapai wasn't in any serious danger of getting knocked out. Okay, he was losing the fight, but he was still in the fight. He was landing some swinging hooks from the outside, kind of like Sam Peter was against Hughie Fury. Even though Hughie Fury was winning the fight, you had the chance. You had the sense that Sam Peter had a chance of landing something. It was like that with with Alex Leopai. You know, you had the sense that if you could just get a little bit closer, he was getting closer and closer with that right hand, and if he could eventually land it flush and maybe back it up with a left hook, you know, there was a chance he maybe could have landed something and had some success. But to me, Joseph Parker doesn't appear to have the power to really deter a heavyweight. I mean, if you've got a decent enough chin like Leopai did, Parker isn't getting you out of there. You know, to me, he's not really shown his power at world level. You know, he showed his power at a domestic level, like where he fought guys like Alexander Dimitrenko and stuff like that. But he's never really shown his power against anybody durable. You know, I remember him fighting Sherman Williams, and he wasn't even able to hurt him, and he was completely shot at that point. I mean, Joseph Parker, to me, and I'm starting to see why a lot of people don't rate him. I really do think he is. He's been exposed in recent years as an overrated fighter. I mean, he did lose to Dillian White. I know he scored a knockdown late in that fight, and it was controversial due to all the fouling and pushing and all that Dillian White did. But I just haven't been impressed. I think Joseph Parker, ever since he won the world title against Andy Ruiz, to me, he didn't really improve much after that fight. I think he kind of went backwards. I mean, against Hughie Fury, he won that fight, but he looked lackluster. You know, when he fought, who was the other guy he fought? Razvan Kajanu, that guy who was a journeyman, and Joseph Parker looked awful in that fight. He really did. So, yeah, I'm not that impressed with Joseph Parker right now. I think the guy has a lot of work to do, and I would not be at all surprised, despite Dereck Chisora being past his prime, and despite Dereck Chisora having had knockout defeats, I would not be at all surprised if he was able to spring an upset here. If he was able to get inside and rough Joseph Parker up and take him out of his comfort zone and force a stoppage, that would not surprise me. I would not be surprised if Chisora is behind in the fight and then he comes from behind to score a knockout just like he did against Carlos Takam. That would not surprise me here. I'm not saying it will happen, it's just that with Joseph Parker, you don't really know. I mean, I do think he has the talent to beat Chisora, and I do think he should win the fight comfortably. But with what I've seen from Joseph Parker in recent fights, I'm just not convinced that he is a consistently good fighter. I'm not convinced that every time you see him, you're going to get a good performance out of him. You know, you could get a performance like the one you had against the performance he had against Dimitrenko, where he looked destructive and powerful, and I was even quite impressed with his performance against Ruiz. I know that some people thought he looked bad in that fight, but I actually thought that he did a good job of sort of taming Andy Ruiz and keeping him on the outside, and I thought he clearly won that fight. I disagree with the people who say it was a robbery. I thought that Parker clearly defeated Andy Ruiz and won clearly. But Dereck Chisora, to me, is a lot more he's a lot more aggressive in terms of his, you know, personality and his mindset, and, you know, he'll get in your face and rough you up, and in the ring he'll hit you low and he'll hit you behind the head and stuff like that. He's a lot more aggressive in that sense than somebody like Andy Ruiz or even somebody like Dillian White. You know, Dereck Chisora is a guy who, as long as he's in the ring, he's always dangerous because of his mindset, you know, because of how, you know, that sort of street mentality that he takes into the ring, because of how aggressive he is. I'm not quite sure whether or not Joseph Parker can deal with that. I'm really not sure about it. So this is a fight that I'm torn. You know, I'm torn on this fight. I don't really know who to pick. Like I said, if you'd have asked me a year ago when I rated Joseph Parker a little bit more, I would have picked him to win handily. I'd have picked him to win comfortably on points, or even a late stoppage against Chisora. But right now, as it stands at the moment, I'm not too sure. But I'm gonna go for a close decision. I think this fight's gonna be close. I think it's gonna be competitive, and I think it's most likely gonna go the distance. Now, Chisora is fighting at home, so he might have a bit of support on the scorecards, but I don't know. Part of me is telling me that Chisora can pull this off, but another part of me is telling me, look, Joseph Parker's too young and too fresh, and Chisora just has had all his opportunities and has failed at world level, and it's time for Parker to really, you know, finish him off and finish his career. So I don't know, man. It's a hard one to pick, but I'm gonna go for Joseph Parker by a close, competitive fight and a close decision. So I'm going to go with Parker on a close decision, but I'm not at all confident in my pick there. You know, I could be totally wrong about it. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think anyway, but I'm excited about it. It's an interesting fight, and it's a really interesting card. I'm disappointed that the card's taking place in London, because you've got Josh Taylor and Ricky Burns, two of the biggest names in Scottish boxing, yet the fight's in London. I mean, the fight really should have been in Glasgow, to be honest. I mean, that's where that card should have taken place, but whatever. I mean, we've got the World Boxing Super Series organisers to thank for that, so yeah, it is what it is. But obviously, since it's in London, Dereck Chisora is well known in London. That's where he's based, from Zimbabwe originally, but he's based in London and has a lot of fans there, a lot of support there, and of course, Joseph Parker, I believe he fought Dillian White in London, and yeah, I think so. Yeah, he's got some experience of fighting there, so it'll be this is the fight on that card that I think is going to draw the majority of the London crowd. So yeah, it's interesting. So let me know what you guys think. Anyway, I'm gonna go with Parker. Reluctantly, I'm gonna go with him on a close decision. So let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and yeah, God bless.